Hi everyone, welcome to another session of Booksy live streaming. So if you've been following me, you know that I have been creating this application for adding books to your library. It's similar to Goodreads. And we've been trying to make it using React Native and FaunaDB. So in the previous sessions we set up the basics. I'm just gonna run it quickly. We've been setting up the basics of the project. It runs on iOS. It has all the pages. I'm gonna show you quickly if this runs. And in the last session we set up FaunaDB and connected Auth0 to it. So let me just quickly log in. Right. Right, so as you can see, we have these 3 pages. We have a working search box. So if you search for something, it shows you, and this uses Google Books API. And in the last session, like I said, we connected the authentication using Auth0 and FaunaDB, and now it's storing all the authentication data in this table. So there you go. This record is being created using Auth0 connection. But in the last session, there were a few things that I didn't do. First of all, I didn't set up the database from scratch. I just used something that I had before. But in this session, I'm gonna set up the database from scratch because we're gonna go through every step of what it takes to have a FaunaDB database. In case you wanna follow along, and then maybe you can go back to the previous video and set up your authentication. Also, one thing that in the previous session I didn't have time to do was have a clean storage for our authentication token, and I used a local variable to store it, but that's not the way to do it, and I took the liberty of changing it to a MobX store. As you can see, it's a very simple store. You can follow the MobX documentation. It doesn't fit in these videos. If you want to know how to do it, either check my commits in the repository. So if you check here, I have the use MobX for app state storage, and it shows you what I have exactly changed. It's pretty simple. There's a simple storage that I just stored the token in, and I use MobX persist, which uses the async storage to store all the values that you save in your data store. And I use it to pass the token to all the screens. And the only mentionable thing here is if you go to, let's say, settings or home, there is this now observer higher order components that wraps our screen, so we're able to basically connect to the store and get everything that we want. Because, for example, we want to have clear token in the settings screen, so in case the user logs out, we want to log them out basically. So let's get started by creating a new FaunaDB store. Just to quickly tell you what we do in this episode, we will set up a FaunaDB database from scratch, and we will try to add basically all of our collection, not all of them, but some of our collections and tables that we want to store our data in, and also add one book to our database if it's possible and we have time. Cool, let's get started. First of all, after you sign up in FaunaDB, you see this screen. Obviously, you won't have any databases here that you want to use, but I do have two, but I can create a new database here. Or if you have already a database and it's related to what you're doing, you can go into that page and click on new database in child databases page. So basically I have a Booksy staging child database in Booksy, and I can create a new one to use in this video, but a child database works and behaves exactly like a normal database. You can just nest them in multiple levels and they will all behave the same. It's just nicer for organization. So I'm just gonna call this Booksy testing, and you can click on pre-populate with demo data, but I don't want to do that, so I'm just gonna click save. Okay, a few things that we need to go through to make this usable, because if you remember from the previous video, we used the authentication token for our database to store our newly created users in this, but we don't have that anymore. If we want to use this database for our authentication as well, we have to set everything up again. But let me start by creating everything from scratch, and then I can set that up again. So if I go to Fauna Documentation, so basically what we want to do is start with GraphQL, because like we said before, we want to use GraphQL to connect to our database because it's the simplest solution, except our authentication process, which was a bit more complicated for GraphQL. We will try to use GraphQL for everything else. So what we can do as well is to create our database schema in a GraphQL format as well, because if you go to your database, you go to collections, you can create a new collection here. But we don't want to do that yet through the UI. We just want to do it through GraphQL to see how that works and how it behaves and everything. So we will follow this, get started with GraphQL documentation, so you will know how it works. Quick start with FaunaDB. We'll skip that because we already have a FaunaDB account. We're already in dashboard and we have our database. Okay, so it says that create a file called schema.gql containing the following thing. So let's just go to the root of our project temporarily and create the same file. I mean, we can move this to another repository like our API, for example, but it doesn't matter for now because we have to upload it through the UI anyway. And it says create a type to do and type query. What we want to do is not do this and instead create our own stuff. All right, so let's just create a type user. Let me quickly check one of my previous files to find all the schemas that I have designed before, because I have to remember what exactly I want to put in this database. Just a second. Cool. I have my database schema somewhere that I can use. But let's go through this one by one. So basically, what we want to do is create our user first. So a user will have their username, and that's type string, and then we have the email, and that's type string as well, and username and email are required. The difference between GraphQL schema and, let's say, a Typescript interface is that in GraphQL schema everything is optional, but you have to make them required by using an exclamation mark. But in Typescript, let me just show you quickly. Everything is required, but you can make them optional by using a question mark. So it's just this design decision that has been made in GraphQL. Alright, so now we have our user and we have a simple user. What we can do, let me just also create the book. Type book, and then I can use the same thing to store it. So we have an ID, let's just not put the ID yet, because, or maybe let's do it, I don't know. Volume info. I'm just gonna quickly do this so our life is easier. Author string. And then we have to create a query. All users, well, we don't need all users, but all books, and then it returns a book array, and then we don't need anything else. Alright, we have our schema. Then we have to import the GraphQL schema. Let's just go here, go to GraphQL, and then import the schema. Schema.gql. Alright, it's done. So once you import the file, it basically creates all the schema for you, and if you click on docs here, it creates a lot of stuff by default, and as you can see, and it expands on your schema. So we have the user, and we have the book here. So yeah, we did make a mistake by providing it the ID, because it creates the ID itself. Let's see what happens if we remove this. Let's see if FaunaDB can update it automatically. Oh, it did. So our book now has just this ID that's been added. Alright. Now if you run the query, books, and then we want the data, and then for each item we want the title. And as you can see, our table is empty. What we can do is we mutate our source, and then we'll create a book like this. Alright, so we don't have a create to do, but if we look at the docs here that has been created automatically by FaunaDB, we have a create book. So create book, and it has a title, but also it has an author. There you go, we created that. So now if we create a query, again, we have the book that we created in our database, and you can verify that by going to collections and checking that you have a book collection and you have a user collection, and this one has a document, but this one has no documents yet. And it also creates indexes for you with the names that you create, basically. Yeah, so far we were able to create a simple schema, insert a record, and basically read it as well. So let's see what else it can do. We did this already. And then we can go to GraphQL tutorials and then start working with the relations. So relations basically imitate the relational database's way of connecting documents together. So here we want to create a few more models and basically say that each of these books belong to a user or another model. So what we want to do in this application is imitate what we have in Goodreads. So if you have used Goodreads, you know that you have different shelves to store your books. So that's what we want to do, and each user would be able to basically store their own books. So let's create a shelf, and the shelf will have a title, and that's string, and a key, and that is a string, and it will have books, and books will be array of books, basically similar to this. So here a list has to-dos, and the only thing that is different is there is an @ relation at the end of it, and this one will tell FaunaDB that basically this shelf is connected to the book as well. And we want to have the owner as user, and this one also has a relation, right? Because you can also have single relations if this documentation actually talks about it. Doesn't say much. Oh, actually it does. So you can do this. So now we want to say that our shelf has an owner. And also we can say that our user will have shelves, and each shelf is one of these types. So let's see if this works. So far the user has shelves, which is an array of this type, and then each shelf has an owner, which is the user, and several books attached to the shelf. So if I store this somehow, if I go to GraphQL, update schema, schema.ql, it didn't work. Target type book has no field that can be used in relationship with type shelf. So let's see how it works. Oh yeah, the reason is we specified the relation in this side, but we didn't specify the relation on this side. So a book can belong to several shelves. So let's see if that's possible even. It worked. I think it created, yes. All right, so what happened here, let me just quickly explain again, is that we have a shelf and we have a book. Each book belongs to multiple shelves and each shelf has multiple books assigned to it, right? So what happens here, because this is a two-way, basically an end-to-end relationship, like a many-to-many relationship, FaunaDB automatically created an intermediate table for us called bookshelves, and we actually don't need to touch this. But if we go to GraphQL again and check our schema, it create the shelf book relation. So it has automatically added all of this stuff, so we don't have to. So our base schema is this, but once you pass it to FaunaDB, it creates a lot of items for you. So now what we want to do is, all right, because each user has multiple shelves, we want to access the user's own shelves, but there is no way for us to access the user in the GraphQL schema. So what we can do is, I don't know, find user by ID. So if we have a user, we can find it by ID like this. 1, 2, 3, and then get the shelves like this. But right now we don't have a user of ID 1, 2, 3. So let's first connect our app again so we can create a user and then go from there. So if I log this out, what I have to do is go to my API project, open it again. Hey Yashar, I will put some links in the description for my terminal and editor themes and everything, so you can use it later. Cool, so now because we're using a second database to do all this, because previously we were using Booksy staging, now we're using Booksy testing, we have to update our project, our API project, that connects the user, and we did this in the previous video, right? All right, cool. Let's first create a token, and the role should be admin, and this should be admin. Just let's call it admin. All right, now we have this. Now we have to pass this to our API, and our API is in Vercel, which we can go to Booksy API, settings. I don't know if it's settings. Yeah, it is. And we have a FaunaDB admin secret, which we have to update. Here. We can't because admin secret, because it's encrypted. So let's just delete this one. And then add it back again. And what we want to do is, first of all, check that the names of the tables, we changed this collection name, users, it's called user now, here. It's called user. I mean, I don't like the uppercase thing, but for now, let's just go with it. We have the user. And then that's it. We don't need to update anything else. Oh, we need an index called users by email. Let's just create that. Indexes, users by email, index name users by email. Oh, what happened? How do we have a way to create a index in GraphQL? Now you have to create it here. Let me just quickly cheat and have a look at my previous database to see what exactly is the configuration of users by email. And that is terms data.email. Yeah, let's just create that again. So we need to create an index. As you can see, it has created a lot of indexes by itself to facilitate everything, but users by email, and that is a user collection, and the terms is data.email, and it's unique and serialized. Cool. And if we look for this, no results found, but we do have this now. All right, so we have our index, we have our user collection. Let's just deploy it. It's very simple to deploy this app. Just you do now prod. That's it. We have our own API. So if we actually go to this API exchange, right, success files, cool. So it works. Now it's deployed. We'll minimize this and then we try to run this project again. Let's just reload it. Sign in. This doesn't work. We need to. Alright, cool, it just worked on first try. Okay, one thing. The settings screen used to have a username and password, sorry, not username and password, just email and username, so you could see who you're logged in as. But now if you check here, is there an error? There is an error stopping us from doing that, and the reason is I have used a query called me to achieve this thing, which is not something that we have yet because this is a custom function added to GraphQL by us. Like I said, what I was exactly trying to explain before, if we go now, we have a user. So if we go back to GraphQL, what was the user's ID? This thing. So if we go to GraphQL, what we can do is query find user by ID and then username and email, right? Alright, so now we can see our user's email and ID, but there are a few things wrong with it. First of all, this looks really bad. Like, I don't want to look for my user ID every time, and the client doesn't even need to know what the user ID is. And also this way it feels like I'm searching for other people's data, whereas I just want to access my own things. But at least let's just for now check if the shelves are there, and then each shelf has a title. Data title. Okay, so this user does not have any shelves yet, and we can fix that. But before, let's just create a function. And if we go to our previous database and check the functions, you can see that we have a function called me, and we can call this function from our GraphQL. So this function, what it does is it just queries the current identified user. So I'm just gonna copy this, go here, Booksy testing, functions, new function, this is called me, and then this. What do you mean, the function? Okay, let me just go back there. Not here. It's a staging function. How does this work then? Oh yeah, null is not actually a. See, requires 0 arguments but 1 were given. It's because this was there. So basically we want to do this and then save. Now we have a me function. Now if we go to this project and check our GraphQL schema, say in the queries section, we have a function called me which returns the user, which is exactly what our function does. But for now, our GraphQL doesn't have access to that. So what we just do is this also doesn't work yet. Let's go to our GraphQL. And me returns the current authenticated user. So let's just upload this again. This is Booksy staging, Booksy testing GraphQL, this schema, and we have a me which returns the user. Let's see if this works. I'm pretty sure you have to do something here. No, it works. Cool. So we created a function and then we just pass the function to query, and FaunaDB automatically recognizes that this me is a function that we created. So if we name this, I don't know, current user, and then here we would have to do current user. Basically, you have to say what exactly this function provides. If it finds a function with the same name as your key, it runs that function every time you call this. So now if we go back to GraphQL and then look at our ugly query, we can replace this whole part with me. Right, it's created now. Cool. So what else do we want to do? We can also get the user ID if we want. There it is. If you have any questions, please just write it in the chat bot. And as you can see, I'm also trying to set this up all from scratch without looking at any videos. The previous time that I did this according to a guide, and I asked a lot of questions in their own Slack community channels, and people helped me. But right now I'm trying to be on my own and do all this from scratch. So if there are like glitches and problems that you can see me having, that's just the way development is. So but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them in the chat section. All right, we have our user, we have shelves, and each shelf has books, so we can also do this. Books title, data title. As you can see, because we don't have any shelves, we also don't have any books. And if I reload this, For some reason this didn't work, even though this worked. Yeah, let's see why this doesn't work. So what's wrong with our query here in settings? Well, maybe I should log out and log back in. I don't know. We'll fix that later. Let's just focus on our database. Alright. Let's create a shelf first, just to see how this all works. So if we come back here, we do this, and then we can create a shelf. Shelf inputs we want. Shelf inputs. Alright, cool. So what we want to do is mutation, create shelf, and then the shelf would have title, owner, email. These are just the things that I want my query to return. Email, and then key. Alright, now let's see what it wants for input. So for the input, it wants title, reading, key. I just want to add a simple key to be able to access them easily, because if this has spaces and whatnot, it's gonna be hard. Alright, so what we want to do is connect this shelf to our user. So basically we have to do this. Owner, connect, and our connect needs our ID for the user. So here we had the ID. Right, cool. And this shelf for now doesn't have any books in it. So let's just create to see if it works. Done. It worked. So it returned the title reading, key reading, and the owner is our current user, which we passed the ID here. Right. So let's just run our query again. Now this shelves array should have just one shelf in it. There we go. It has a shelf called reading, and then there are no books in it. Cool. So let's just add also one book, and then we can try to do other things as well to fix our issues. So mutation, create book, we want data. Let's first return book title. Title is enough for now. Well, maybe shelves title. We want to know what shelves it belongs to. Alright, what should we pass to it? Again, we can check our documentation. Create book. And it has book input. Alright, let's just start with this title, Skyward. I'm sorry I'm just using Skyward so much. I like this book a lot. So I'm just gonna is it Brandon or Brandon? Yeah, correct. Cool. And then, alright, so this is a bit more complicated because a book, here we just connected the shelf to the user immediately, but here a book can belong to multiple shelves. So if we wanted to add this book that we're creating to, let's say, reading and I don't know, some other shelf for some reason, we could do it. So what we want to do here is put shelves, And the relation is we can either create a new shelf and we can pass the shelf input similar to what we did here at the same time with creating the user, or connect them to multiple shelves. So if we do connect, it expects an array, and we didn't check. Okay, let me just, or I don't know, maybe go here. Our shelf ID is this. Just connect it to this thing. Done. Now we have a book in shelf reading. So if I go again to my query and run it, here you go. We have a shelf, and this shelf has Skyward book in it. Pretty simple. Now if we go to collections, we can see that our book, well, this one was created by the test query. Alright, so now we have a Skyward Brandon Sanderson, and then we have bookshelves, which is automatically created. We don't want to touch this shelf. We have a shelf that we created, and as you can see, in the GraphQL connect part, we passed only the ID, but FaunaDB automatically creates changes that ID to actual reference to the collection user, right? We don't want to touch this. We just update it through the GraphQL schema all the time, and it will be fine. And here we still have the user. As you can see, this user doesn't actually have a shelves property like we have here, but that's just, if you see, this one has an owner, so this is a one-to-many relationship, so a user can have many shelves. Alright, so now that we have one shelf and one book, well, let's just create another book as well, just for good measure. This series has also star sites. Let's just create it. Or maybe let's also at the same time create a shelf. So yeah, so there is a book, the final empire. So I want to create a shelf at the same time as well. Create. It expects the same thing, same stuff that are there. So if I want to read, title to read, that's it. Oh, we need owner as well. Let's see if it can create a shelf and connect the book at the same time to that. It did. So now if I go to my query again, I will have two shelves. One of them is reading and it has two books, and one of them is to read, which has one book. And we can verify this by checking the shelf collection. We have two shelves, both of them belong to the same user. Cool. So now let's check why this doesn't show our users information. So if we go here, this thing, where's that error? Undefined. Alright, cool. Yeah, this is actually what I wanted to work on after this. So now there is an issue. We have this GraphQL thing which has the me function that we created, and we can query from it here easily, and it shows all the data. And the reason we can't see it is the authorization header that is being passed to GraphQL in this UI is my admin authorization. Because I'm logged into FaunaDB's dashboard, it automatically gives me this thing here that I can just use to query everything in God mode, basically. But our user doesn't have any permissions. it doesn't have permissions to run functions, it doesn't have permissions to create, to read, to do anything. For this, we need to create user roles. So we want to basically say that every user that belongs to this collection user has specific privileges. And for that, we can go to security section, manage roles. And here there are two roles only, admin and server, and these two are just for creating. Admin is the one we used for the sign up part, the key, and server is just for the same stuff but has less privileges than admin. It's safer to use this. I mean, I should have used this with Vercel, but I mean, this is a test database. You shouldn't do that. Just before I do that, I'm gonna quickly go grab a drink and come back. Just hold on a moment, sorry. Alright, I'm back. Cool. So now let's create a new role, and we want to call this the user role. And it's pretty simple to actually work with this. Alright, we can choose a collection of where this role applies. We want to apply it to user role, a user collection, sorry. And as you can see, it shows a lot of permissions that we can configure for this collection. But let's just first, sorry, this part was not belongs to the resource part. This membership is that part. So basically, membership means which collection this role applies to, and that is called membership, and we just want to say user for now. We can also add it to indexes, to other collection. It doesn't matter. I mean, FaunaDB doesn't really care what they are called. You can just add it to them. Okay, so what we want to add to this is, first of all, fix this issue. Insufficient privileges to perform this action. So we want to let them run the function me, and function me, we want to just enable the call. And the reason that we want to let them just call it is because function me returns the logged in user's information and not anybody else's, so it's safe to use. And that's why we can write functions so they have limited access. So we'll just do this and save. Oh, come on. Oh. So let me just cheat again. Let's see what the hell I did in the previous thing. Function, but the function doesn't require anything. Function doesn't require anything. What do you mean? And this is just users. So we're doing exactly the same thing. Let me just if function, what do you mean? Oh man, let's start over to see what the hell is happening here. Just user role, and then membership would be just users. Let's just save it. Okay, it worked. Let's enable users read. It worked. Let's just let them call Okay, now they're not able to call, but what if I enable this? Okay, it worked. It was just a glitch. Alright, cool. So now our user role allows users to call read on user database. Basically, we want to let them see everybody else's profile, and then we want to let them call the function me. And then if we reload this, oh, what happened? Insufficient privileges. Oh, yeah, maybe we need to delete our user and start again. Okay, first of all, let's log our token. Because we wanna use the token. Or maybe let's just take it from here. Provider, here's the token. Here's the token that we have. Let's see why this doesn't work. I'm thinking that we might need to destroy that and create it again, but let's just use this token. And this token is type error. Permission denied. What happens if we log out and log back in? First of all, this button can be here, so we can actually log out. Sign in. Alright, we still don't have permissions. That's interesting. What do we need to do to give permission? Because this should perform the action. So let's go to security again. Keys, manage roles, user role, membership, users, FQL. Call true. We can call the functions. Let's see again, cheat, and then go to see what the hell we're doing back here. Staging, security, manage roles, no user, FQL. So we can read the collection. Privileges. Alright, let's see. You can call the function me. You can call the function me. So read, yes. All books, user books owned by user, shelves. Oh, I think we can't read the collection shelves, so let's just extend the role basically. Let's see if this fixes it. We wanna let the user check read books collection, read. So we want to let them read all of this stuff. What happens now? No permission still. I don't know what to do. Action, read true. Alright. Back to the documentation. We want to know how to allow users to actually do this stuff. Okay, we created this privileges, membership, collection users. I don't know why it doesn't work, because it should work. Wait. It should work, come on. I know, guys. Let's debug. Okay. Here, our normal user. Oh, I think we might need to delete the user. Ooh, fancy. Wait. Please don't tell me that's the case. Let's delete the user. This is just, it breaks everything. Should have created the role first. Still doesn't work. Great. Fantastic. I'm really happy it doesn't work. Why it doesn't work? Okay, let's just fix the book stuff. Shelves. Belongs to this user. So our user function is still intact. So let's see, our GraphQL runs still. Alright, this works. What's happening? Alright, what else can we have that we haven't added? Member collection. We don't wanna... See, there's something happening here that... that's interesting. What's happening here? Why doesn't it let me save this function? When I touch the membership, it throws an error. No user. What else is here? Let's just add all the indexes that we have, just to make sure this works. Oh, I think I know. Shelf owner, the user. Bookshelves, bookshelves. Doesn't work. Oh man. Let's just, okay. Let me check the token. Let's see if the problem is with the function or something else. There. Query all books data title. We can't see that. Cool. Let's see if this works. Okay, so our user has access to everything else. It just doesn't have access to this me function. Find user by ID. Shells. Cool, okay, then our user has actually privileges. It just doesn't. I think there's something wrong with the permissions of the thing. So let me try to see if I can fix that another way. Manage roles, user roles. So we actually have access to everything. We're just not able to. We want to read it, you know? Yeah, I think there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong with this function, but we can fix. Oh wait, no, yeah. Oh, I'm dumb. Sorry guys, I just realized what happened. Okay, so here you go. No. At least I think that is it. That wasn't it. Okay. I don't know. Okay, that's all I knew. Let's check the thing here. Let's see, staging, GraphQL. Let's see what happens in our schema. Oh, I think I know. Or I at least. New user, but there should be a permission thing. See resolver. Create function, say hello. Let's just create this to see what the hell is happening. Alright, let's create a function. Go to shell. Created the function. And then add it to our GraphQL schema. Say hello. And then let's update our schema. Okay. Let's use this to do say hello. Okay, seems like this doesn't work for even other functions. So now if we go to our security rules and then manage roles, change our role to add function, say hello, make it call, does it fix the issue? It does. So there's something wrong with our me function. So what if we do this? I'm so much in a rush that. What? Isn't this correct? I don't know what's happening here, but let me just remove this. This works. So now what if I change this to me and function user? Instance data is invalid. Yeah, there's something wrong with our function. Let's just see, there's this issue here, but okay. Let's first go to shell and run this to see what happens. Okay, cool. Let's create a new function again. New function, test function. We just want to get identity. And here we want to call this test function. This function works. And this will okay, FaunaDB insufficient privileges function. I doubt that it works, but if it doesn't work, I will move on from this and then okay, let me just do one more thing and then move on from this. Manage rule. Let's just make it unrestricted for everything. Last try. Okay, it doesn't let me do it. Bookshelves. Let's try. Nope. Okay, let's just for now do this thing and then move on from that, because I think we have wasted a lot of time just looking for this small thing. Okay. Let me see, how do I name this? Find user by ID. Data.me. Okay. Where is the thing? Oh, here. It worked. Alright, cool. So our GraphQL works, but our function doesn't work. I will debug that. I think there's something wrong with FaunaDB, and you basically saw that the function, even when we were creating it, it had an issue. So I will debug that. But cool. Let's just go here and then list our books quickly in home screen, and then we can add a book. And that's it. Cool. So what we want to do is, in addition to set token, we can just hard code this stuff for now. So basically what I will do after this video, I will cut that whole debugging part or not. I mean, let me know in the comments if you want me to cut this in the final video. It didn't work out. I will try to fix it, and then I will update the source code with the correct thing. So basically it should be like this, but it doesn't. So yeah. Let's update home screen and show our books. But before we do that, we have a few other issues that we have to fix. Okay, so first of all, now that we have our users and books and shelves, what we want to do is we want to store the Google book structure, like this stuff, in a separate table, but call this user book. And the reason we want to do that is we want to store each book in a separate table that all the users have access to, and we copy the result of the Google Books API directly to that. But users can add or remove books from their shelves without touching the other the actual book structure. So the title and author and this kind of stuff should be stored in the other one. So let's just do that. So for now, let's just call this books, and then we will have another one type book source. And book source, what we can do is replicate this stuff. It will have an ID. Google book ID string, or ID, volume info. Let's see if it has inline stuff. Unique index embedded. Yeah, we wanted to embed, because I wanted to create another type for this, type book source volume info, but I don't want FaunaDB to create another table in addition to this, so I just do embedded here so it doesn't create another collection or table or whatever. And then here I would do book source volume info. Right. And in this one, let's just do title with the string. Authors, it can have multiple authors, would be string. an exclamation mark inside here is the values should be always string and not string or null or something. And the exclamation outside is that this author's array should always exist. It cannot be null. That's why there's like 2 exclamation marks. Publisher is string. Description again. Image links. And then book source, image links. Embedded. Small thumbnail. Well, these actually might not be required all the time because some books don't have thumbnail, don't have images. We don't want to show them, but still this is not required, so we cannot rely on this being always available. So now we have to somehow connect our book source volume info to user book, and user book would have a source, and the source would be book source. Let's see what happens if we don't specify relation exactly. Let's just do this. Go to GraphQL Playground, update schema. Okay. Syntax error, type book volume info. What's wrong with our syntax? Today is not my day, huh? Do you guys see what I have done wrong? Okay, first of all, this needs a relation. Maybe this should be string. Are the Google books? Yeah, it has a string. But let's try again. Reload. Schema. Invalid input title string, authors, publisher, description. 926. Doing something wrong here. Oh, found it. Found it. Alright. No. Links. Here we go. Again. I'm dumb. Now there is like no errors at all. Did we create it? No, we didn't. Let's just update it. Okay. Book source is defined more than once. Book source. What do you mean? Oh, book source image links. done finally. Okay, so now our books would have sources, not titles. So what we want to do is if we create book, let's see what the input looks like. Shells and then source, and you can create a book right there. Cool. And then we have to remove the title and authors from these books so we can have them in the other one. Cool. So now let's go to a new tab, write a new query, create book source, not query, mutation. Create book source, and then here we need to pass in the data, blah blah blah. So let's do Oracle Docs. Okay, first of all, let's add a button here. In the book details page, let's add a button on top. So top bar, right buttons, label. Okay, I need to check documentation here. Option, right button, ID icon, component, don't component, text add. Okay, there's something else we need to add here. It needs ID. Add book button. Now we have it. Cool. So now we want to do something when this is pressed. Okay. Let's see what we can do. React Native navigation X. Compose the appear. Navigation mode dismiss, navigation screen pop, navigation button press. So basically what we want to do is we want to know when that button is pressed. Component ID. Oh, alright, cool. So now we want to go to a page and then click on this. Hello is called. So what is the event? The button ID. So if the button ID is add book button, so if edit button ID is add button, then we can, doesn't this have, oh, you can actually limit it. It's raining. Raining, cool. Now we want to open a page and show all of the users' shelves. Cool. And for that, we have to have a new page. So let's just duplicate home screen quickly. Call it, what do we call it? Shelves. Alright. We don't want search bar. The title should be type of shelves, home screen, shelves, screen, and then for now you should just say hello. And then we go to routes, we register this, shelves, screen, app.booksy, shelf screen. Okay. We have register page, yes. Shelf screen, add shelf screen. Cool. Now we want to do so that when we click this button, a modal pops up and shows this shelf screen. So for that, let's just close everything and then go to navigation.ts. We don't need this yet. We don't need this. Navigate to show modal. Component ID string route is one of routes and pass props is again any. So for this, I'm going to do navigation, get show model, and there's layout. Stack children components name routes and pass props. This should work. Let's see if it works. So if I do go back to book details and then here, so do show and then pass this component ID routes shell screen and pass nothing. Let's see what happens. It works. It works. I wasn't actually expecting it to work on first try. But this is good enough, right? So let's just make this smaller because we don't want it to look that big. Shelves. Large title visible false. Oh, it exploded. What happened? Oh, the whole thing exploded. Okay, this is working nicely. Okay, now in this screen, we wanna do a few things. First of all, let's just add some buttons to it. Right here, right buttons, text, save, ID, save. Can you do left buttons? ID cancel, text cancel. Go here, go here, go here. It works. So now we wanna do they have dismiss model? Okay, let's see. We want to do the same thing. But here we don't want to pass this one. Component ID is enough. We can do switch case, either button ID value cancel. For this, you do navigation dot. Let's just add a wrapper around it because we have this one. We can have export const dismiss model. Okay, so instead we want to do dismiss model and component ID. So we want to dismiss this thing. Let's see if it works. Oh, when it's like on this thing, it just dies. You have to figure that out as well. But it works. Cool. This is working. So here we want to show the list of things that the list of shelves that the user has. And again, we have an issue because we don't have the meeting. I'm gonna fix that off camera. But let's just get a list of shelves, basically. So we can go to settings, we'll take this. Shelves, data, title, key, and ID. So we want all the shelves. Okay, so right now we need some types. So our shelves had ID string, title string, key string, export interface. Let's just pass this shelf. So our res is Okay, for now let's just not do this because this is actually a more complicated process than what it is. So let's see if we console log res. What does it give us? Okay, it does give us the shelf. So basically me, that shelves, the data. So if we have res.me, res.data.me, that shelves, it should be the array that we want. Yes, it is. Now we have to just show each one. Press the data.me shelves. So basically we want to make sure our shelves are good enough to show. Shelves at map, shelf, undefined is not a function, shelves at map. Okay, rest the data with me, shelves. So log shelves, let's console log it. It is there. Oh, each one has a thing. What? Type in data. Let's just do any for now. Shelves. Data. What the hell is wrong with you? So log shelves undefined to that is JSON string for shelves undefined to data tile. Why is this an object? Why is this an object? Oh, this is the thing. Got it. For some reason this thing just dies all the time, but let's just go here again. Apparently it doesn't like being called from that source, but okay. I think it's short. Let me see. Here you go. The reason I used safe area view is that I want it to automatically come beneath the header. So now I just want it to look nice, and then we can wrap this session up. So we want to be able to select these two. Let's see. React Native checkbox. I wonder if we should use React Native elements for this. Okay, maybe not. Maybe just let's have it ugly and then we can clean it up later. Let's just add a book, one book to one shelf at a time. Okay. Here, and then we can copy this part. Okay. Cool. And then we can have this as style stats. Okay, wait. This is likely a bug in React. Thank you very much. Okay, this is working. So we can just make it touchable highlights. Border button color team dot border. Just add a new color. Border, and then just border button with style sheet dot hairline width. Ah, that's ugly. Ugh. Let's just GPA. Okay, a bit better, but not so much. Also not touchable highlight, maybe touchable opacity would be better, and then on press, handle, shelf, press. Let's see if this works. Bingo. Cool. Alright. One thing that we haven't done is we want to show the book that is the subject of this operation. So for now, we have to just go to book details. We have the book here, and we have to pass it to this book. And then once we pass it, we will have access to it from here. Navigation component, props, interface. Props would be book, Google book. And if we console log, book.volume info, the title. So if I do this, we have Skyward here. So, okay, let's consider this scenario. This is the first time one of the users of this app has encountered this book and they want to add it to their shelves. What we need to do firstly is we need to quickly add it to the book sources kind of source. Book sources source. Yeah, we have to add it there and then let the user add it to the thing. So what we can do here is does it mutation? So we need a mutation. First of all, we need to have a use effect. Save the book here. We don't have a cleanup, and then here would be book.id, basically. And then we need to use before I save. Yeah, cool. So we need to now go back to GraphQL Documentation and then check the mutations. Okay, let's create a file for our let's call this create book source. And then the mutation okay, type of the mutation. We need the type here. Over here, yes. Create the book source. Well, let's just create a book source. And then the type of this is book source input. So it takes data, which is book source input. And then also here, data equals data. And then what it needs to return is what is a book? Google Book ID. Volume info. Right. And it can just return Google Book ID. and also maybe ID. Go to documentation here. Let's see what this does. Okay. We come here and then first of all we take mutation, create book source, and we need to use mutation. Create book source, book source. Alright, and how do we call it? ID, title, yeah, okay, cool. And then apparently, let's log the console log book source so we know what's the result. But then here we need to create book source and the variables would be data. Okay, const ID data book. Take the ID here and the data is Google book ID is ID and then the rest of it. And after this, the catch so log error. Alright, so this should create the book immediately when we open that thing. Let's see what happens. Alright, there's an error. Cannot query field update to do. Okay, yeah. What to do then? Update to do. What update to do? Create. It's called create book source. That's what happens when you copy paste stuff that you shouldn't be copy pasting. Okay, once more. It worked. Wait, what? Book source, not documents yet. What do you mean? Oh no, there is an error. Variable data, expect the value of book source input, but got Google Book ID kind. Oh, it's okay. We have passed way more data. So in our type, we have only created volume info. Yeah. See, in our type, we have only created volume info, and it has only like these few things here. But then we are passing way more things. Like the Google API result has a lot of things included in it. So let's just create a helper for now to quickly create that. So Google book to book source, and then this would take a book of type object and return a Google book. Data book. Okay, so do we have Lambda here? Lambda. Okay, I would like to install Lambda, please. Sorry. So what I want to do is make my object much simpler by using some pick. Okay, let me see if pick returns nested type of thing. Okay, return to book ID. Let's just use ID for now. Then we can call info. And then here we can do import pick from lambda pick. What do you mean? Okay, let's just quickly do this. What are you talking about? Okay, what we need here is title, authors, publisher, description, image links. Should be good enough. Google book the book source, book. Yeah, it worked, that one. Let's disable this thing so we know what exactly we're doing. So it only has authors, description, image links, small thumbnails, thumbnail, publisher, title. Is that all? Was that everything we wanted? 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So now we have to just pass this to the okay, seems like there is no errors. So book source. Oh, come on, what the hell is happening here? Okay, I really don't like this logger, so let's just open a proper logger. Come on. Come on. Okay. Let's just remove this log. I don't like this log. Okay. So now I go here, I open this and put add. What happened? Did it create? It should have created this. No documents yet. That's interesting. Just do it again. Error. Insufficient privileges to perform this action. Should have known. We've had permission problems all day. Okay. Collections, book source, unrestricted access. Still insufficient privileges. Because I did not save. Or did I? I did not. One more time. If it doesn't work, then we can have this session be over until I figure out what's wrong with the permissions. Okay, in here, error insufficient. Alright, I think that's all we can do for today. I think it's been already 2 hours, and this FaunaDB permission is giving me trouble, so I'm gonna figure that out, and then maybe tomorrow I will have another session to go over the rest of it. We have to finish this weekend before we can move on to the other parts of the application. Alright, thank you for bearing with me with the debugging session. I think we were like debugging for half an hour and we still didn't figure it out. But hopefully tomorrow we would have better luck. Alright, thank you for being here. Bye.